Oh. Okay, so this is a little video for Eduardo. Hola, Eduardo. Where I'm going to be editing your picture. So anyway, I'm going to be using Instagram for this video, although you can do any program. There's a number of different programs, depending on what you're using, Apple, Android, whatever. The concept holds the same, though, or the principles that I'm about to show. And so Instagram is the easiest for me to do a quick video with, so that's why I'll be using it. Anyway, so these are our, just so that you can see what I did there. We're editing the picture. We're not going to use the brightness at the top here, even though sometimes that does look good. That's just sort of an auto filter. We're going to come down here to the bottom, and we're going to look at our main ones, which is contrast, warmth, which is actually the white balance. We can do minor corrections there. Saturation is another really important one. And I like to use highlights and shadows a lot, which is sort of mini contrast that we'll get into in a moment. So let's see. Contrast, first thing. I'm actually going to turn contrast down at first, but I'll show you what exactly contrast does. So contrast is the contrast or ratio between the dark colors and the light colors. So a super contrasty picture looks like this, where there's like, it's really stark and bright and in your face, whereas a low contrast picture down in here, everything's sort of the same smoothness. And we can actually go way down, and it starts to gray out. This picture doesn't actually do it very much. But for now, I'm going to go down a bit, and that's just to see the picture a little bit clearer. I'm actually going to bring the contrast up, but for now, we're going to do that. So the next thing we're going to do is come over here to warmth, and like I said, warmth is the color balance, the white balance. So you can see, as I'm sliding this slider here, in one direction it goes more red and yellow, and in the other direction it goes more blue and green. And so I think actually the more natural color is way down here. So this is the stock where your drone is taking it at, and way up here, like, if you wanted to do something like that with really low saturation, that would be like a interesting beach scene or something like that. But for our purposes, I'm going to go for a bit more natural. So we're going to come in here, and when I'm setting it, I actually just like to slide it, like move it like this, enough that I can see a decent change as I'm kind of honing into where I want. So I think we'll go right about in there, and that'll be our balance there. Saturation I am going to take down, although we're going to come back and play with this. I want it to be where it's just starting to bite, where the color's just starting to come in. Saturation is how much color is in effect, and with this picture, maybe it's just the Facebook upload quality or whatever, but we start to lose a lot when we go saturated. So we're gonna take it right here, just because now, like, look at the ice as well. Even though it's lighter, it actually gives the ice a more blue ice look, and because the color is less, it I don't know, it just brings that effect out more. So then the other thing that I like to mess with all the time is highlights and shadows, and depending on the program you're using, it gets a lot more in depth than just a slider each. But what this is as I said before, is kind of a mini contrast button that is only targeting the brighter colors or the darker colors. So this is the highlights, and as you see, if I make it really dark, the various lighter areas of the screen go darker, and same thing in reverse. If I bring it up this way, it brings them out. So I actually usually tend to bring the highlights down a bit, because if you can see up in the sky or in the ice especially, that's where we can start seeing a lot more detail. So I'm actually going to bring that way down here, and then we'll come over to shadows and bring that darker, and it brings the sky out a lot, actually. For other pictures, bringing shadows up a lot is what you're going to want to do, but for this one, it's going to help with our contrast, and I like it down here somewhere. Yeah, I kind of like that. So now we can actually bring the brightness up a little bit, maybe. Yeah. Just to try to get some more natural whites. I'm actually going to... Oh, yeah. So let's come back to our contrast now. Let's bring our contrast to about there. What do you think? Right where those shadows start to kick in on the right there. See, on the ice. Yeah, right in there. Okay. Actually, it's not as contrasty as I thought we were going to go. Maybe in there. Now we're going to come back and bring our saturation down a bit. So see how it takes that extra oranginess or whatever out down in here. So the blue of our ice and the blue of our sky is still brilliant, but now our trees are not so overwhelming. And in your picture, the last two things that I did, I don't even know how to pronounce this. Vignette, I think, is like the old-timey style where if you look on the corners, it brings a darkness in. And I think it has something to do with how old cameras had very small aperture sizes or something like that. But I like this effect, especially when we're doing colors, and especially because it happens if you look on the bottom, actually both of the left corners, it clips out just a little bit of ugliness up there and in the bottom. So like not all the way, but right there. Looks really nice. And then the last thing I did was a radial tilt shift just to get the focus only on the trees. So like with the tilt shift, we don't really lose much of our shadows, but it blurs out the background, and I kind of like that. And that would be the same effect you would get if you were using manual camera settings. You could adjust the focus to only be on the forward trees, which I think looks nice. Without it, I don't know. There's not enough quality detail in the background in this particular picture to make it worth it. A linear tilt shift is kind of nice too. Like if we weren't looking at the trees, if we had a little bit more interesting stuff in the foreground, this might have been cool. But as it stands, there's not, I played with this before, with the one I was doing before, there's not a good angle that you can get a good tilt shift going, but a radial shift actually, I think, looks pretty nice. Right there, maybe. And there's the picture. I'm not actually going to save this one, because the only way to save it, annoyingly, is to upload it, wait a minute, and then delete it. But it should be pretty similar to the other one that I had. So anyway, I will put this somewhere that I can record it, that I can save it and send it to you.